Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to ELTea Time MENA, which is our coffee break style advancing learning podcast series. My name is Nathan Waller, and I am your podcast host for today. And if you haven't joined us before for an ELTea Time, for each episode, I'm joined by a guest, an educator who is based right here in the Middle East and North Africa, or the MENA region. And together we engage in a 30 to 45-minute discussion on a topic of their choosing over a nice cup of tea. Now, this is episode 12 of our second season. And today I'm joined by Yousra Ferchichi. Am I saying that correctly? I should have asked you.
Ferchichi, yes. It's it's like a French pronunciation, not the English one. Yeah,
it's going to be the French. Okay, good. So we're joined by Yousra today. A very warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us on this podcast, taking your time this evening to talk to us about this particular topic. We're really happy to have you with us. How are you, and how are things over in Tunisia?
Thanks for having me, first of all, and I'm so glad to be here today. And as for Tunisia, everything is all right. Everything is fine. The weather is a little bit cloudy today, unlike how it usually is in Tunisia. It's usually sunny, and but all is well. All is fine. Thanks.
Good. I love Tunisia. I've been there a couple of times. I used to have a friend that lived and worked there, so I used to come and see him. And yeah, I traveled a little bit, actually. I had some interesting travel experiences in Tunisia. I took the overnight train one way to Tatooine. Well, actually, it wasn't quite as far as Tatooine, but it was as far as you could go, basically. So yeah, I just went to the main train station and was like, how far can I go on a one-way ticket? And he was like, Tatooine, if you want to. And I was like, let's do it. Let's go. And off I went. And then I worked my way back up through the country using all those, what are they called? They're minibuses. I've forgotten the name of them. You catch
so there are plenty of them, the buses. But let me ask you a question. Since you've been to Tatooine, so that's what we call it. Have you visited, or did you go to the Star Wars location? Because the Star Wars was filmed in Tatooine.
I did, yes.
Did you go there? Yeah.
I'm a little bit of a Star Wars nerd, so I did go there, yes. And I spent the night in the one that they filmed it in. And it is a long time ago. There was no one there. It was literally, I was the only person for miles around, and I was the only person staying in that place at that time. And he closed the doors at like 8 p.m. and I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do now, just go to bed, I guess. Yeah, it was an interesting trip. I enjoyed it. It was really nice.
Oh, great. So we'll be glad to have you again, and you're always welcome to Tunisia.
Yeah, I cannot wait. I would love to come back and sit on those terraces in Sidi Bou Said and drink a coffee and see.
You know the country well.
It's beautiful. It's such a beautiful place to come to. I love it there.
Thank you.
Talking of hot drinks, it is the evening, but it is still ELTea time. Are you drinking tea?
No, I forgot to bring my cup of tea today.
Do you have a favorite kind of tea? Do you drink tea?
Yes. So I used to drink jasmine tea. But but not anymore, because like I've stopped tea and coffee. So, but I used to be a coffee addict, the Turkish coffee. So in Tunisia, we call it Arabic coffee. It's not Turkish coffee, but I used to be kind of an addict. So like 3/4 cup of coffee a day. So, but I stopped it because like I'm back to sport and working out, and I figured out that it has more than drawbacks and more than benefits. So to keep myself kind of active, so I prefer sport to tea or coffee, but tea is amazing. So
I tend to drink one coffee a day maximum. Very similar. It quite often gives me like the shakes at night. If I drink too much, I get a bit shaky. But what you're saying is I can totally empathize with, especially when I travel for work. If I visit like lots of schools in one day, they like all want to give you Arabic coffee, and I get to like the 4th meeting and I'm like, I'm sorry, but I can't do any more powerful shots of coffee.
It is.
Eyes are like this. It's crazy. So I've got tea. I've got fruit tea. I kept it simple. Blackberry and elderberry is the tea.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, great. So today's topic is going to be all about growth mindsets. But before we get into the topic, I want to quickly introduce our wonderful guest today. So Yousra is an English language teacher from Tunisia, as you just obviously probably gathered. She holds a master's degree in arts and humanities, specializing in cross-cultural studies in English. She's a CELTA qualified instructor and a scholar conducting research on digital humanities. She incorporates the use of technology in her pedagogy, including video, film-based learning, and podcasts. Really keen on all of these digital aspects, which I'm sure we're going to touch on a little bit. Yeah. She's also a teacher trainer who enjoys guiding professionals to revamp their skills, creating a blueprint for personal branding, and she likes to implement the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, in education. She's done lots of presenting. She's a freelance teacher trainer. She's a career coach. I know you do love doing all of these things with teacher development and coaching. And she's a member of various teachers associations as well. Among them, TESOL, the International Association, TEFL Kuwait, which she is currently the SIG lead on the sustainability.
To be launched soon, yes. Yes, the Partnership for Sustainability to be launched soon, very soon. So, and I'm the media and PR manager. Yep, for TEFL.
So we'll come back to that as well, I think. Africa ELTea, which is fantastic because last year in season 1, we had Amira join us, which was fabulous as well. Mm-hmm. And now TESOL. So we're all in one big happy family, I think, it seems like. And she's currently the Media and Public Relations Manager at TEFL Kuwait, as she just mentioned. And when I went through your profile, I mean, you've got certificates and qualifications in such a range of things. Digital journalism was in there and all sorts of things. So I know that you've got a wealth of experiences that you can share with us this evening. So I've given a bio. There's a lot in there. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself? I don't mean, when I say personally, I don't mean your personal life, but just share a little bit about who you are beyond the kind of qualifications and certificates.
Yes, I believe that the human being is far way beyond the certificates and the degrees, because the degrees are just milestones to show the vis-a-vis. So where are at the career path. So for example, if you seek to be a teacher, so we need qualification to be a teacher. But as for the learning, I consider myself, I have a special word for myself. I consider myself as a serial learner. It's kind of a weird name, but I cannot stop learning. And that's something that I like to discover, new things, new concepts. So in a nutshell, so I'm an English language professional. I discovered that I wanted to be a teacher in 2009. While I was, at that particular time, I was drafting my master's degree dissertation. And then I got an opportunity to teach as an hourly paid teacher. So I said, why not? Because first initially I wanted to be an interpreter. So that's something that I wasn't really keeping in my mind. So, and after having tried the first experience teaching undergraduates, I knew the value of the profession. So when my students, it's like a kind of a facilitator more than a teacher. So my learners were just foreigners and studying at private, it was a private institution in Tunisia, private university. And so some of them, they didn't even study English at their hometown. So they came to Tunisia to get the degree and learn languages as well. So, and I was happy to receive the majority of my students after I finished the lesson every time. So to tell me, Miss, this is amazing. In my country, we didn't used to study English, and now I can understand more things. And the session is so amazing that I want to attend, and not just for the sake of learning, but to have friends, and because I was using the communicative approach at that particular time. So they enjoyed it. And they were just having fun. So I still remember the first year that I taught at the last session. So they kind of made a surprise party, and they brought cakes and soft drinks. And so we enjoyed the moment, because at that particular time, I knew that teaching is a work of art more than a work of art. So it's like the impact that I have on their lives made me love to teach. And after I have, I submitted my dissertation, so I said, that is what I want to do. So, it has been my story ever since. So, and every year is different. you know, every year brings a new opportunity, new experience, new people. So it's like there is a kind of interchange and exchange. You have it with your students, and I learn from them more than they learn from me. So that's what I think.
Yeah, and you're certainly not alone in that sentiment. I think most of the people who come on to the podcast have similar kinds of different contexts, different stories, but always that passion as a driving force. And you know, getting to know their students as people, not just recipients of their lessons, is a key theme that seems to come through. I have one follow-up question, which I guess is thinking about Yousra in 2009, the newly qualified CELTA graduates, to Yousra now, which is, what's this, 10, 14 years later, is it? Is that right? 40, oh my God.
14, yes. Yeah, 14. Yeah.
14 years later. Similar person, different person? What have you learned along the way? How have you changed because of those experiences, do you think?
Yeah, let me just clarify. So the CELTA, I got it in 2019, but so the person, I'm different. Like every year is different from the previous year, let alone like let's say the initial step to this one. So I consider that I'm a much mature teacher, and I've learned a lot. So my pre-CELTA experience is different from my post-CELTA experience. So I used to be a university teacher, so I taught like ESP. I'm the one who takes challenges without even doubting a moment about it. So every time I was offered a position, they tell me, are you ready to teach this? It's a new system, like international system, French system, British. Are you ready for this experience? I tell them, I know that I have the skills and I'm ready to get some training on this. So the growth mindset in here is like the open-mindedness.
Yeah,
the ability, to adapt myself to change made me kind of a different person, and I'm still ready to learn.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely delving into the growth mindset right there already, I think. I have actually another question. So when you came to do your CELTA, because you had quite a lot of experience with students and with ESL, did you experience parts of that course and was like, yeah, this is easy, or this part makes sense? Because I know when I did mine, there was parts of it that I were like, I'd never even heard of this stuff. So
yeah. So I'll tell you, there are moments where I had the deja vu moment. So as a teacher, so I know this. This can make me elaborate this in an easier way. For example, I used to have a very good rapport with my students, and I was kind of setting the context also always before starting the lesson. So there are certain moments at the CELTA training that I felt that this is a deja vu moment, but I learned a lot, especially from experienced teachers and from my CELTA tutors. And allow me to mention names. So I mentioned Laura Woodward, and she was and still is an inspiration to me. And Laura had that particular sense of humor, and I really identified myself with her immediately. Like she was kind of very professional, and but at that particular time, so I remember there's a TP in my CELTA. I did a speed dating. And I was kind of scared. Is this going to work in this context? And it was within the norms, within like I was organized, I practiced the tense. So it was kind of a grammar focus at that particular time. And I've added some background music to that, so that to keep it kind of, so people who felt energetic at that particular time. And by the end of the session, we had kind of two people that really matched together with that speed dating. So I remember Laura at that particular time, she was like kind of having that smile. So, and she was very encouraging, and she's a nice person. So what I learned from the CELTA is to dare, try new things. Yeah. And I calculate the risk before. It's not like I have a nice idea, it's going to be brilliant, you know. So I anticipate problems and anticipate solutions so that to know what can happen, how can I deal with that. And I developed what we call now the ELTea brain. It's like whatever lesson is thrown at me, so I can just take a piece of paper and just draft few things very quickly, and now here's the lesson. So there is a particular time I remember in 2019, so post ELTea, and I joined a new school, international school, and I was substituting another teacher. So it was like a kind of brief. Here's your book. You're going to teach today. So the ELTea brain helped me in a way to have that kind of adaptability.
Yeah, and confidence as well, a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
Nice, that's good. And I know Laura, she's based in Egypt, right?
Egypt now.
The British Council. Nice. Okay, so let's move on. Well, I have to say, let's move on and talk about the topic, but we've already kind of delved right into it because we've been talking about growth mindsets quite a lot. Let's go back to the kind of broader approach to the topic. What is a growth mindset, and why do you think it's an important topic for us to talk about? And we're thinking about teachers here in the MENA context specifically.
Yes. So I'm going to start first to talk about growth mindset, like generally speaking, how people define it and how people perceive it, and how I see it myself in my context. So the growth mindset, I think it's like the elasticity kind of, the ability to adapt oneself to any particular style. It's like the soft skills that we don't only preach but teach, but also apply. So growth in this sense. So there is a Japanese word that I really like so much. It's called the Kaizen. And the Kaizen theory is based on positive improvement. So the growth mindset is like, it should be in a positive way. It's not like today, for example, I've done this and I've achieved this milestone, and the next step will be doing the same thing next year, but with no difference. So it's like growth in this sense. There's improvement. There is something called going outside of the comfort zone, trying new things. So being fully aware of the experience is like learning to learn as well. And as a teacher, so the self-consciousness is really important in the growth mindset. And what else? It's like kind of everyone is kind of everyone will be sharing this energy. So it's like you share a positive mindset, and the colleagues, their influence. So it's like a collective energy that we share. It's not like you are someone who has bright ideas and then the network doesn't allow you to apply them. So growth mindset can only be applicable and influential only if it's applied within the right network. So and within the right people.
Okay. So a growth mindset is specific to an individual, right? Yeah. Okay. So I mean, I guess the opposite of a growth mindset is a fixed mindset, and we all fall foul of fixed mindsets in various aspects of our life all the time. And I think that's probably because of the way that we're conditioned to think as we grow up, as we're kids. Parents and especially teachers in school, we focus a lot on positive end results. So, we use particular languages like well done or you're amazing. So, but a growth mindset is really flipping around this idea that I cannot do something, that I'm fixed in space.
Yeah.
And it's
I can add something.
Very familiar language, things like I'm not very good at art, or I'm not good at sports. Yeah, these are fixed mindsets, right?
Yeah, sure.
You believe you're at a particular place and you cannot get any further. That's a fixed mindset, right?
I have something to add, if you don't mind, Nathan. It's like the growth mindset is based initially on we mentioned unlearning. So apart from unlearning, there is something else, is like going beyond the limiting beliefs, because as you said, the parents, institutions, schools, they condition us so that we think a particular way, we behave a certain way. And after you graduate, you get all the degrees that you have, and you go on your own to try your own personal experience in society, be it professional, personal, whatever. So the growth mindset, I think for me, it goes hand in hand with sports. So I see it as an athletic person. For example, It's like when you run on a particular distance. So you say, this is my capacity. Can I try more than this? And that's the endurance. So next time I'm going to try the next step until you develop that kind of what we call the elasticity in just like in yoga, the flexibility and like we have it in sports. It's the same for the brain. It's like the bandwidth of the brain is extended through knowledge, through personal professional experience, through whatever you read, whatever you learn. And it's like eradicating negative beliefs first, the limiting beliefs, so that we can go beyond that. So because that closed mindset, I believe that we're a mixture of both. It's there. The closed mindset is always there, but it's your ability, your capacity to manage those negative thoughts maybe that recur once in a while, and how you adapt that so that to jump up to the growth mindset. So I think we're a blend between the two. And it depends on one's ability to practice this as you can do it, so that you can achieve the best version of yourself, let's say.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, it depends on certain situations or contexts. You can have a growth mindset in one aspect of your life and a fixed mindset in another aspect of your life simultaneously at the same time.
It is.
You can believe that you're moving forward, but also be holding yourself back at the same time, because that's how complex, I guess, the human brain is, right? But I guess I guess what you're saying is that the brain actually has unlimited potential to grow. And I mean, from what I've read about growth mindsets before, is that the process of learning helps the brain to not just learn what it is it's focusing on, but it helps it to learn itself.
Yes.
As well. So you're getting that additive advantage of your brain's elasticity is continuing to grow beyond what you're just learning.
And I've noticed a quote, I can't remember, I'm not sure it's Albert Einstein who said this, but I've seen it somewhere, is like, education is not like the input of knowledge, it's like training people how to think. So I think education should be perceived this way. It's like, as teachers, as teacher trainers, as coaches, so everyone have access to knowledge nowadays. It's everywhere. But now, as a teacher, how can you employ the right methodology so that to make it enjoyable and to make it credible to your learners, and so that they can get, let's say, have an added value from it. So it's like, how well as a teacher you can really perceive this and convey it to your students, because students nowadays, they know more than teachers, and I'm sure 1000%, it's not 100%. I've taught engineers dealing with artificial intelligence, business intelligence, they're coding, they're developing, and some of them, they have developed an app that they sold to the Middle East, and it's a video game app, and they're very famous. So they're very smart, and it's up to the teacher now to keep on the same pedestal, same scale as our students. So we shouldn't stay behind. So learn, unlearn, so that we get on track with them. So that's what I think. And I've seen in the chat, Nada, she was mentioning that in the MENA region, it's difficult in advancing the mindsets. And I think challenges, they're everywhere. So regardless of the place you are in, regardless if so you are the carrier of the mindset, let's say, okay? And wherever you go, you just carry this with you. For example, now, if you are someone who has that flexible mindset and you deal with people around the world. So for example, now I'm going to talk about my experience in teacher associations. So I'm keeping the same mindset. Myself, Yousra, is in here and abroad. It's like work ethics should be here. Professional ethics should be here. Credibility, transparency, sharing what I know without expecting anything in return. So you are the person who carries those values. So, and it's normal. So you face challenges, because challenges will be everywhere. It's like within the same person himself or herself. So, so it's up to the person to know how to deal with the context or the network, let's say.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned this comment in the chat box about MENA, because it's related to a question that I was going to ask around MENA. And obviously you're not a representative for all of MENA. It's such an enormous territory. You obviously live in one particular country. You've got experiences working with people in others. Thinking about what you know and your own context, for example, do you think that there is a predominance for fixed mindsets I guess again, it depends on the context within education, let's just say. For example, let's say primary and high school education. Do you think kids are very optimistic, growth mindset oriented, or do you think that they do have this underlying belief that they can only go so far?
Allow me to segment this into different parts, because I have nuanced kind of point of view. So I will start first by talking about the mindset in the MENA region. So here, it depends on where you teach and what you teach, for example, and on age sometimes. But now it's relative. So I'm just going to mention this, but I don't want to generalize. So I believe that those who stick to the closed mindset are those who are afraid to try something new. For example, if a teacher is older than 50, sometimes they're afraid to learn new skills, especially when it comes to technology. And sometimes they don't allow younger teacher trainers or younger colleagues to guide them through, because they think it's like by age they should have acquired those skills. But it's here lies the growth mindset. It's up to the teacher trainer or the young person or the older person to collaborate, to learn. And here I believe in mentoring. So the mentoring process has helped a lot of people, and myself included. So I was mentored by Amira Salema, who's now the president of ELTea. So, and I knew nothing about Amira's age, but what I know is that Amira has been an amazing person and still is. And I learned from her a lot of things, regardless of where she is, what is she going to teach me. So it was a kind of a mentee-driven approach. So, and I've seen a lot of teacher trainers, foreigners, than the MENA region, and they're retired teachers. So they lead technology better than I do. So I watch their YouTube videos. I learn from them. I ask them questions. So that's how it goes. And if we keep saying that I'm not good in this, I'm not going to learn this, or let me not ask this question, I might look like not knowing the issue or the topic. No, dare to ask them questions. And if I notice if a person is, for example, this is in class, if I notice that my student, I have the impression that the students didn't get the information, so I check understanding. So I believe that there's body language. So, and people sometimes they say, yeah, I think, yes, I think this is right. No, so I dig deeper into that and I ask a question in a different way to make sure that the person understood. And I record tutorials and I share them. I post whatever I know. So going back to this, so age here, we started talking about age difference can be a hindrance sometimes. So from learning new things. And there is also the difference between public and private institutions. So here, sometimes the resources are not available for public institutions as compared to the private institutions. So here comes collaboration and partnership. So partnerships here, they can help bridge the gap if there is one. So, and I believe through teacher training, through conferences, through PD. So this is how it goes. That's what I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I almost feel bad because the question was setting you up almost for such a challenging answer, because I mean, we didn't mention what some of those challenges are.
That's okay, it's fine.
The challenges are more bigger and unpredictable. I mean, that could be a whole range of things in a whole range of places. political, social, cultural, could be anything.
Mm.
We don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to generalize it.
And of course, it's so difficult not to generalize. You know, you can also meet 60-year-old teachers who are training other people on how to use the most advanced digital technology. So yeah, it's a difficult one. I kind of agree maybe a little bit about the public-private. I do think that certainly across this region, students who attend public schools, especially where it's really underfunded, probably are more prone to have fixed mindsets just because of the context in which they're studying in.
It depends. It depends. I've seen public schools that they have growth mindset, but they can do nothing about it. You know, they have the mindset, but they lack like the resources maybe. Yeah.
So we have the whole spectrum, I'm sure, and I'm sure that's probably true regardless of where you are in the world. I've lived in quite a few different parts of the world, and I can't say that it's. Anytime I spend time with teachers or students in this region, I never usually walk away feeling like, oh, there's a lot of fixed mindsets right there. People are usually very open to learning, asking questions, enthusiastic. Maybe that's just my experience, but usually experience.
It depends, yeah.
Again, it very much depends. Okay, so we're going to move on to the final part because we're going to run out of time. So I want to talk about growth mindsets in more practical terms, thinking about growth mindsets in the classroom, thinking about teachers approaching growth mindset in terms of activities they plan, resources that they use, language that they use with their students. And I know that you've got some really nice examples that you want to talk about. So let's think a little bit about growth mindset in very practical ways.
Yeah, yes. So growth mindset, we can talk about it, for example, in class. So for instance, once I heard about ChatGPT from the very first moment, so I posted a video asking for feedback. First, I've tried it and I've asked colleagues to try it and check it with me. And I've planned the lesson using the ChatGPT itself, not the lesson, not the content, not the lesson planning, but the lesson itself uses ChatGPT in some particular stages in the lesson. So it was kind of a resilience in competition, and the example was ChatGPT and Microsoft. So the lesson, since I was a teaching technology engineer, so the lesson started with introducing first what is AI, how to use it, and I've introduced the SDGs as well here with the partnerships. For example, if two competitors, and both of them, they're very, very, very brilliant. So do they go and fight with each other or they partner with each other? So I said, instead of trying to lead a battle, so the ChatGPT and Microsoft, they had a kind of partnership. Okay. And so I've used this to teach the resilience in itself, and using ChatGPT in class. So the last part where the students, they have to use it in class. So I noticed that it was banned at a particular moment because there are certain institutions that they were afraid of the technology, so they just banned it because they were afraid of plagiarism and all that stuff. And since they were engineering students, so I encouraged them to use what we call, there is the playground in ChatGPT, and there's the ChatGPT, the chatbot itself, and they've applied for positions. So I told them, so the final stage was to write an email to apply for a job to work at ChatGPT. So that was amazing. So most of them, they managed to do this, but the challenge was for teachers. So the teachers were not used to the technology. So I was guiding them in the process. And what I did is that at particular times, so they were asking questions, how can I know that this is not an email generated by ChatGPT? So it was like kind of very, very recent at the time. So I told them there's the new classifier from ChatGPT, and this is the link, go and check it. So the teachers were just checking the new classifier, and one of them told me, one of the students had the email written by ChatGPT. So it was an occasion for them to discuss the ethics and the ethical approach with the growth mindset. So I still remember that experience because it was very challenging to me. And it was not easy to deal with closed mindsets of some and the growth mindset of others. And because I was in charge of preparing a lesson for a group of teachers as well. So that experience taught me a lot about growth mindset. And I've decided afterwards to start even my freelance lessons on growth mindset by work.
Yeah, I saw, and it's a really nice it's a nice story, and you're teaching me something, because to be honest, I'm a little bit behind, I think, with this AI and Chat GPT issue. I've probably got a bit of a fixed mindset myself on this.
No.
I need to learn a little bit about it. I keep looking at it, and I opened it and I used it a couple of times and was a bit like, don't really see the point.
Yeah, it's not really interesting, but the way that people talking about it, they made it a trend, and I'm not using it for the moment, but I believe that we should know everything just for the sake of knowledge. For example, as a teacher, I should be ready in class if any student asks me a question about that particular topic. So I test my lesson, I try it, I get informed the more that I can about the lesson, so that not to stay kind of behind. But it's not like a huge issue. So if anyone is not up to AI until now, but it's still time to catch up. There's nothing to be missed.
No,
Nothing.
but I think what I really liked about the story, though, is the fact that you have used that technology or that system to challenge the students. So it's not just you could use it, or is it plagiarized? You've actually got them to collaborate and discuss, and so you've taken what's going on and then you've brought that together to help them. I guess the follow-up question, because you mentioned that there's students with growth mindset and students with fixed mindset, and this obviously is going to be true in probably any classroom. I'm seeing that as comment down there. So she's trying new things, for example, trying new technology, maybe trying a new activity. And within a class, because of the way the class dynamics work, you're going to have some students with growth mindsets who are going to be very positive. They're going to see it as an opportunity to do new things, perhaps. And then you're going to have other students that are going to be like,
no, that's not my thing. Yeah.
Is this on the test? Oh, I'm not very good at that.
Yes.
I don't like working.
Is it graded?
Graded. I'm just going to get a certificate out of this.
Yes.
Within that dynamics of a class, like, how do we as teachers, how do we balance that out? Again, a very difficult question, I think.
Yeah, I know what I do is like I challenge even the students, even teachers. So I do this even for teacher training, I mix them up. So so according to the initial activity, so the warm up of the lesson or the workshop, whatever is it. So I divide them into groups. So, and there's kind of the initial activities they're meant to see if they can go beyond their comfort zone and if they have that particular growth mindset or not. So since I mix them up and on purpose, sometimes I just assemble them together according to different mindsets, and they challenge themselves. So by working together, so with the time constraints, with everything, so they managed to do it by the end. I remember a project for third-year students where they had to create a simulation to an NGO, and they have to create it from scratch, starting from their mission and vision and the promotional video and whatever they're doing, the flyers and the brochures and everything. And when it comes to the choice of the topics and the choice of the groups, I remember that it was very challenging. For example, the girls, they didn't want to work, for example, with guys when it comes to certain topics. So I understand that. So I feel them. But I was surprised to a certain extent. There was a topic talking about a feminist organization, and I had two guys, because I was teaching undergraduates, so they were adults, and they were supporting the feminist agenda and a feminist ideology better than girls, and it was amazing for me. And I really like it because the Tunisian society is really exceptional in this sense, because like I can talk about my vision to things in my society, because we are predecessors with the politics, with legislation, with everything. So for example, a guy cannot get married to polygamy is not available in Tunisia. So here, one of the points is that the families here, they're raised, the gender issues here are not problem here in Tunisia. So we can have a guy defending women's rights better than a girl. So, and the growth mindset here was kind of how that guy was facing his other friends' vision to him, supporting the feminist kind of topic, and he was dealing with it as a grown-up. So it was amazing with the video, promotional video, because his argument was, I am a brother to a sister, and I have a mom, and I'll be having a daughter. So this makes me really a good member in this group so that I can talk about this topic. So it all depends on how the teacher knows and understands. So emotional intelligence is really important here. So it's not like just, we're here, we're going today to study this, and bye-bye, there's a test, and here is it, we have understood this, yes or no, here is your grade, and that's the report card, and bye-bye. No, that's not that. So we teach skills, we teach life skills, more than competence and academic skills. And most of my students, they're still friends to me. So once they write an article, I have a student who just published articles in the economic. They study in France, some of them study in Canada. So they keep in touch. Miss, would you proofread this for me? For sure, here is it. So that's how it goes. It's beyond the classroom.
Yeah, we're touching on so many, well, I mean, there's so many things that can even pull most of them out, but yeah, relationships at the heart of education. I love all that stuff. But you touch on a lot of other things as well. It sounds like a lot of the things you do with students are, they're around project work, collaborative work, getting students, giving students choice in what they do is a big motivational factor for us. If we're able to choose and direct and steer where our learning is going and what kinds of activities. Sometimes as teachers, we can fall into a bit of a fixed mindset in terms of we think there's one outcome. If you think about lots of classrooms, not just in MENA, all around the world, when teachers do an activity, they tend to get 30 pieces of the same type of work. It's got different, it might be written differently, or there might be different ideas on the page. But actually a growth mindset is saying to yourself, can students express this language that we've been working on in more ways than just a piece of writing? Could they perform it? Could they sing it? Could they dance it? Could they come together to create an animation? Can they use technology to create something new? Can they surprise me? And if you've got that mindset, I think that your students really start to surprise you, right?
It is. I remember a few things from my drama classes. So I made a lot of deviations today, so mentioning a lot of things. So I remember my drama classes teaching middle school learners. It was very challenging in that particular sense. So the deliverables were not just, here is it, miss, we're going to perform this, we learned it by heart. No, it was improvisation. I still remember the Careers Day play that they have planned it and played it in class. They brought their own costumes. So I remember some of my students, one of them was a doctor. She was wearing her mom's blouse. The other one was kind of an engineer. So they have borrowed some of the materials, some of the things that their parents use for work, and there's on the helmet. So they brought in class, and they've drafted a play and like a scene from a play, and they've acted that. And I feel happy when I receive a deliverable which is different. And I've used mobile phones in class, so I take my students outdoors. So the classroom is not the only space where we learn. So we do have a huge garden in the school, so why don't we use it? So drama class is outside. So I still remember some of the students, when seeing me in the corridor, they just run, miss, are we going to have a drama class today? Because it was bi-weekly. So, so it's the impact, it's the surprise effect. It's like, that what makes me happy. It's like, and even parents, they talk to me after that. So they feel if their son or daughter, they have improved in that particular moment. So sometimes they just talk to me and tell me, thank you. Sometimes they just know that the learner is facing difficulties. So how can I make my kid improve in that particular phase in his life, in that particular, for example, fluency in language. I think communication is important
Usually, yeah.
at all
You,
levels. Yeah.
yeah. Again, really nice stories. It's fine that you deviate because they're such wonderful stories, and I really like listening to them. You reminded me of a story of my own, actually. You're talking about Laura. I used to work in the British Council in Aguza in Cairo. I did a short summer contract there, and I remember at the end of that summer they wanted to do a drama piece. There was like a drama club that was attached to the course that the kids were doing. Nobody really wanted to do it, so I was like, I'll do it. Yeah, it's fine. And I remember with these kids, I can't remember, a group of, let's say, 20 of them, and we had a story that we had to do. I think it was Peter Pan was the story.
Mm-hmm.
But the production, the end production that the parents saw, I mean, it was the story of Peter Pan, but it had changed dramatically. You know, there was, I think Buzz Lightyear was in there. There was all sorts of other characters. Spider-Man flew through at one point. You know, just kind of gave them free reign, and there was guiding language and guiding things that they needed to focus on. But they had a blast, you know, and they got super creative, and they did all sorts of things. They changed roles and who was supposed to be who, and yeah, they had a great time. It just reminded me of that.
Same. I did that with King Midas and the Golden Touch. So I still remember, like, I told them, here is the story. We're going to watch it. So it was kind of scaffolded writing process, and then we're going to write an alternative end to the story. How can you perceive the end of King Midas? So because, you know, everything he touches turns into gold, and then he was greedy. So the moment he touches his daughter, the daughter turned into gold. So, and some of them, they went into improvisation with that, and it was amazing. So
and that's
creativity at its best.
It's the great thing about using stories with language learners is that, I mean, you can change the end, but stories can take new paths and deviate and go into new worlds. And it, you know, kids these days, they see that so much in the kinds of things that they engage with. You know, you look at kind of new Marvel movies, you know, there's all these multiverses and universes and all.
Yes.
They're kind of used to thinking that way. You know, that their imaginations will take them off, and they'll bring new things in and add this and change that, and you can be this and you don't have to be that. You don't have to follow those rigid stories anymore, I don't think. And they get so much out of it. And they use so much, like I said, the soft skills, communicative skills, life skills, empathy skills. They develop all of those through those activities, I think.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Yeah.
We haven't gone on to with the last thing we were going to talk about. Did you want to talk about the Ikigai that you do? Because this is a big part of a project that you
as
run.
you like.
So you're really interested in Japanese culture, and you're really interested in this one part in particular, which is using Ikigai to create and develop growth mindsets. So why don't you tell us very briefly?
Briefly, I will. So I am fascinated by the Japanese culture. I don't know the language 100%, so I learn new few words just like this. But what I like about the Japanese culture is their professionalism. What I like about the culture in itself is how people, they're punctual, how they're workaholic. I see that as a good point, by the way. So how they do the work in the best possible way they can do. And I've looked up for what is the secret. So I started reading books. I've started at, you know, I'm fascinated by when it comes to the Asian culture in general. So when it comes to yoga, Tai Chi. So because I noticed through my practice that there is something particular when it comes to their energy. So I'm someone who believes in positive energy. So the way the Japanese, they work, the way they treat people, the way they, so it was kind of an inspiration to me. So, and I came across a word, which is the Ikigai, in a TED Talk. And I've looked for it. So I started to see, what is it? I've read the book, and I recognized that there are even many books written on Ikigai. So, and I took coaching programs where they have applied the Ikigai and the CBT, what we call it. So I said, why not? I tried this and I applied to my context. So I started, first of all, by applying it to myself. So I started to recognize my own Ikigai. And then a friend of mine told me, he is a coach in storytelling. So he told me, why don't you do this with your real context? So I said, why not? I'm going to start with you. So I said, this is it. He was like kind of the first person I interviewed. And ever since I did that podcast, so I'm applying it to the growth mindset coaching. And either implicitly or like professionally speaking. So even my friends or anyone who knows me knows that I'm always think in positive terms. So even if someone tells me a negative story, here is it. Let's see the positive things from this. Let's see what is good about this. How can we apply? How can we go a step forward to this? So I've applied the growth mindset to Ikigai actually. And the Ikigai in itself is like finding someone's purpose in life. And I figured out that Ikigai was the secret to longevity in Japan. So they consider that behaving as such, knowing first one's purpose in life, applying it and doing one's best to adjust accordingly can lead to living over 100 years. So there is a village in Japan, I can't remember exactly the name. So they did kind of statistics and they've asked people there, and they recognized that there's nothing special about that, except that the fact that they've known what do they like in life, and they just apply it on a daily basis. Be it having a cup of coffee on the beach, enjoying like a quality time with family, drawing. So it depends. Everyone has an Ikigai in life. And that's the drive and purpose. What makes you wake up in the morning and say, this is it. This is why I want to lead my day to day. And I'm so happy about it.
Yeah, nice. And Nada finds it interesting as well. It is an interesting concept. Japan is an interesting place. Probably one of the most interesting places I've been to. Yeah, it's very meticulous attention to detail. They think about everything. It's a very cool. It's a cool part of the world. Okay, great. We've run over a little bit, but it's great. I'm so thankful to listen to all of your stories and your ideas. We're going to be doing Ikigai together, so people can listen to my Ikigai, I guess, if I have one. Do I have a purpose in life? Hopefully I do. I'm sure
you have. Yes.
But before we do wrap up, we always like to finish with a favorite teaching tip. Could be a tip for teachers, or it could be a favorite tip that you have for yourself in the past as a teacher. Could just be Yousra's words of wisdom, whatever you like. What would you like to finish with as your final words?
Okay, so I would like to end up with something is like, don't be afraid to put yourself on front line as a teacher. So I use my own life, be it professional or personal, as an example. I teach my lessons using my photos, if possible, my videos, talking about my anecdotes, talking about my trip, talking about, so if the student sees that the teacher can talk about himself, so this way encourage students talking about themselves. So because I believe I don't have wisdom words, or no, I just believe that I have tried some methodologies that might work with some and not with others, but this is my style, so that's how I do it. For example, I can never start teaching without even talking a little bit with my students. So first, let's get to know each other if possible. So I have that find someone who activity that everyone knows with my particular style. I add music to it, and it's fun and amazing. Sometimes even I remember the school principal came to my class and see what's wrong with it. The music was so loud, but the students, when he saw that the students were enjoying it, he understood. So teachers should dare to go beyond their comfort zones. So that's what I think.
Yeah,
and with calculated risks, of course.
With calculated risks, of course. Do you think that that lots of teachers do worry that about getting too personal with students? Because there's obviously there's a balance, right? It's letting them get to know you, and that you're a person, that's you're not a robot that's coming in to instruct them. But I think there is a worry sometimes that what is too personal a little bit.
Yeah. So for example, if I use a personal anecdote or a personal photo, or I make sure that it's school decent, it's classroom decent. So it's like I don't expose my personal life to my students. So there are limits. And if I know that that class that does not have that particular mindset yet, so that can wait. It's not like from the beginning, this is my full package and this is it, we're going to learn it this way. So, but as for this, for example, I don't accept my students honestly, on Facebook during the school year. So there's an email. So that is the only contact that it can be established between a student and a teacher. Once you graduate, you're welcome. And I'm dealing with an adult at that particular moment. So that's what I believe.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess summarizing that, it would be more personality, not personal life, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Nice. So I'm going to bring us to the end because we've done almost an hour. We've been talking for almost an hour, but it's been so great. And I'd like to thank you again for joining us today, for sharing your experiences, for sharing your ideas, for sharing the things that you've learned, the things that you're working on, the things that you're learning about now. All of these things are really interesting for us to help us to reflect on ourselves, I think, a little bit. We've been talking about growth mindset. Obviously, this kind of came around. It was coined by Carol Dweck in a book. So if anybody has not seen that book, it's called Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. It's actually quite old now. It's nearly 20 years old, this book. So growth mindset's been around for quite a while. And of course, she just coined the term. I'm sure people were thinking about growth mindsets with different terminology.
With pluralism,
way before that as well.
Yeah.
But definitely go away and have a think about how you can develop your own growth mindset. Go and have a look at Ikigai and see whether or not you can find your purpose. Hopefully your purpose remains in education. I don't want to force anybody away from their day job.
I've recognized I have another purpose, which is broadcasting and journalism.
Yeah, and again, seeing it's helped you to guide you down a parallel path. Let's say a parallel path.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion as much as we did. Go and check out the other ELTea Time MENA episodes. I'm going to update the website. I've actually finally uploaded all of this season's episodes onto the MENA PD Academy YouTube page, so they're all available. And I'll hopefully get this one up over the weekend as well. We're going to be back on Monday. So on Monday, it is World Family Day. And I'm going to be joined by my colleague, Ola Arafat, who's in Cairo. And we're going to be talking about the importance of families, but also the importance of homeschool connections as part of a celebration for that day. So hopefully you can all join us for that. And we'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. Yousra, have a wonderful evening. And thank you so much again.
Thank you. Same to you.
And we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Thanks.
Okay, take care. Good night, everybody.